Hello and welcome to Helping Other People Excel, our show for today. The acronym for that is HOPE, H-O-P-E, Helping Other People Excel. And we're looking forward to spending a half an hour with you today. Hopefully bring some hope into your life, some encouragement to you, and maybe to others that you may know, help you be a blessing to them as well. So as we often say, a rising tide raises all ships. And so we're hoping that by raising the tide in your life and bringing hope to you, that in turn it will bring hope and help to other people in your neighborhood and around you. So thank you for coming into our home today, and welcoming us into your home today. You haven't got into my home yet. But anyway, before I get started, we of course have the technical aspects of our sponsors to deal with. So our first sponsor is pampermenaturally.com. Lovely little website that sells all natural products of soap and lotions and various personal care, shampoos, skin care, and so on. That's all natural, no chemicals. That'd be good for your skin and your family. And of course, they like to say, if your skin could talk, it would say, "Pamper me naturally." So we want to help you pamper your skin and your body as well. In helping other people excel, our goal is to help you in your spiritual life and in your emotional life, and to encourage and uplift you. But in the health world, in our bodies, we need that same kind of encouragement and help as well. And so we find if we give our bodies the right things, then they can do well. And we got to feed the body, the mind, and the spirit. So we want to make sure that you have all three aspects covered. We can help you with the hope part, but Pamper Me Naturally can help you with some of the skin care and health and nutrition. And then, of course, our other sponsor is Perry's Place, and they're up in Cedar Springs, 90 North Main Street, Cedar Springs, Michigan. And they have a fine little store of herbs and teas and other things also to help you with your nutrition. Perry, the owner up there, he kind of has had problems with wheat intolerances, gluten-free. That's probably the buzzword that everybody's heard lately. And also with dairy, he has a problem with dairy as well. So he's kind of set up his little store up there to help people not only with general health and nutrition needs, but also with that kind of thing. So we want to thank Perry and also Pamper Me Naturally for sponsoring us here at Helping Other People Excel. Heaven is My Home is the other show that I'm co-host with Pastor Gary Meyer, and so I sometimes relapse into that show, but that's Gary's show. So, but we want to thank Pastor Gary also, because he was certainly instrumental in helping us get this spot here on WCET television here in Hudsonville, and their fine staff, Alan and Faith and JB, that takes care of us and helps us record and produce this show for you that listen here in the Hudsonville, Jenison, Granville area. But also we now archive all of our shows and make them available to you on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and just do a Google search or a YouTube search there. I guess it would be not so much Google, for me, Jim Pate, and then Helping Other People Excel. And there you'll find a listing of all of our shows up to date pretty much. And so you can kind of catch up on some of the shows that you missed in the past, and maybe get some additional encouragement and help and hope for your life. So once again, I want to thank you for letting us come into your home today, for tuning in and listening, and hopefully we'll be able to inspire you and help give you encouragement. You know, for many years I worked, had my own businesses, and I worked all the time, nonstop. It's been a nice pleasure here lately, because I've been able to talk about maybe going and doing a little bit of traveling and taking some vacation time. But for many years, you know, I owned my own business and businesses, and you know, to the outward eye, I seemed very successful. And I think so many times we see that with people. They live in a nice community, they drive a nice car, they own a business or two, and you know, they seem like they've got it all together. But when you start to inspect closer, if they were to allow you to get past the outward facade that we all tend to put up for the public, you might find that they too are on the hamster wheel, I like to call it, where they get up in the morning and they, you know, sleep till the last minute and they drag themselves out of bed and pour that last bit of pot of coffee maybe for them. I remember drinking pots of coffee when I was running my businesses, and you know, that was what kept me going. And I'd take off for the office and be there all day, and it just seemed like ran hard all day long and tried to get everything accomplished, all the scheduling and all the purchasing and, you know, taking care of the employees and making sure everybody's happy. And the government, you can't forget about them. And you know, it just seemed like it was run from daylight until dusk, trying to keep up and to keep that little bit of lifestyle that I enjoyed. You really didn't have much time to spend at the nice house or at the cottage or at the boat, because you were just constantly always trying to keep the businesses going and so on. And so maybe that's you today. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you are caught in that hamster wheel yourself. We like to call it, I remember years ago a pastor of mine, he used to say that you're caught in a rut, and he said a rut is merely a grave with the ends kicked out, you know. And boy, you know, that seems to be so often true, that you know, we're in that rut, and it just seems like that it's been said that many people, maybe we should say now today to be more politically correct, they die at the age of 26 and they wait till the age of 78 to be buried, you know, because they lost all their hopes and their dreams at the age of 26, and they really were just going through the motions of life. They were just plodding along and had their blinders on like an old plow horse, and just going through up and down the roads all day long and all night long, just trying to get by and trying to keep the little bits of life, if you want to call it that they had. Maybe a couple hours on the weekend where they might make it out to the boat for a little bit, or, you know, and then when you get to the boat, it's all about cleaning up the boat because it's hasn't been used all week, and, you know, you got to sweep and get the cobwebs out, and, you know, there's always the polishing the hull and stuff to keep the algae off and so on. I mean, there's just so much that, you know, the swimming pool that sits out in the backyard that people don't ever get to use or swim in, and maybe the kids get to swim in it, but the parents never hardly see it because they're at the office or at the factory or wherever it is that they have to go to their just over broke, or JOB, job as we all know it. And you know, that seemed to be for me where I was. I was just over broke. I was just constantly on the edge. And oh yes, I had some nice things. I drove a nice car and, you know, lived in a nice place, but it just was that just over broke thing that just always kept me stressed out, and I really couldn't enjoy life much because of that. I just felt like always this burden on my shoulders that weighed me down, and I just felt so tired and stuff all the time. In fact, I remember you know, going to bed at 10 o'clock. You know, at 9 o'clock I was already looking at the watch going, oh yeah, I got another hour and then I can go to bed, you know. And just being by 10 o'clock so exhausted, and if I went somewhere and ended up staying up past 10 o'clock, it just seemed like I just couldn't hardly keep my eyes open or keep picking up one foot in front of the other, because I was just so tired and fatigued. And stress will do that to you, you know. And I'm sure that many of you can relate to what I'm saying. Hopefully not as many as I think, but you know, hopefully there's some of you out there that aren't caught in that hamster wheel or on that treadmill, and that you don't live that kind of existence. And for you, I'm very happy. But it's for the rest of you that my heart pours out, because I've been there and I know how that is. And you know, I found something in my life that really changed my life. And to me, that was the most important thing. It just really lifted that stress and lifted that burden, and I finally had hope again. And what I found was just new information, you know. I mean, so many times I'd sit down and think to myself, boy, there's just got to be more to life than this hamster wheel I'm on. There's got to be more to life. There's got to be something else that's not this stressful. And I'd look around at other people, and I'd see people that took vacations or cruises with their families for a week or a month, and you know, others that seemed to be taking vacations, it seemed like every other month. and good for them. I really encourage all of us if we can do that. But that wasn't me. I was stuck in this job where I had a company to take care of. I had customers that counted on me to be there and be reliable for them if they needed me, whether it was weekends or evenings or whatever. And then the employees, and bless their heart, they did the best they could with the leadership they had. And that was me, and I only knew what I knew, and so I couldn't give them any more than what I had already because I didn't know any different. And it goes back to that, well, there's got to be more to life than this. Other people don't live like this. Bill Gates doesn't live like this, and Warren Buffett doesn't live like this. And so what is it that they do, and how is it that they don't live this life, but they have a more pleasurable and enjoyable existence? And so these things were all eating at me and pondering them in my mind. I would, try to think, well, what else could I do? If I don't like what I'm doing now, what else could I do? And, there was a couple of times when I was a little younger and still had a little more energy left that, I tried some other things. I realized that I didn't want to be on that hamster wheel all my life. And so I thought, well, I'm going to jump over and hop on this other hamster wheel and see if that's any different. And what I found out there was that it was just a different hamster wheel. That's all. It was in a different part of the room. So I got to look at a different wall instead of that wall I was looking at. And, I started a restaurant for a while, and I ran the restaurant. And I liked running the restaurant. I liked to cook, and I liked food, and I certainly liked people. But what I realized was that I was the magic once again there, and that if I left, if I wasn't there to keep an eye on things, that it didn't do so well, and I had problems. And so, maybe it was partly me looking back on it too, because I was that kind of person. I always wanted to be in control. I always wanted to, and so I didn't want to relinquish that control, maybe to others, but it seemed like whenever I tried to do that, it didn't go so well. And so I spent hours. In fact, the restaurant kind of became a lifestyle for me. I didn't get to do anything else. I was there at that restaurant all the time. And, it was nice and all that, and it was nice to hear the compliments from people about the food and everything, but still, I never got away. It wasn't like I could go out on the weekends. I think I had Sundays off, and so I could go on Sunday if I wanted to go out to the boat or if I wanted to go to the beach or wherever. But, Sunday was all I had, and I had to be back to work on Monday because the restaurant opened early, and, I had to be there to start prepping things and everything. And so it was just a different hamster wheel, And I'm sure that many of you probably feel the same way. You've tried similar things. What else would I do? Where else would I go? And I heard at one time that, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. And boy, I'll tell you what, that made a lot of sense to me, but what else would I do? I only was good at certain things, and nobody had taught me anything at all about really about money and about how the economy worked and so on. And there's ways you could learn that stuff. You could spend $80,000, $120,000, depending on how long you wanted to go to college. You could spend that kind of money to get a college education. But I came from a relatively middle-class family, I would say. Some people might have even called us poor. I certainly didn't see it that way, but then again, it didn't really bother me. I thought we did just fine. I thought we were just normal, and so I came from a factory working family, and my dad knew factories. He knew how to work in a factory. He knew about unions, and he knew about making so much per hour, and he knew about time studies, and he knew about all these things, but he couldn't teach me anything about the stuff he didn't know. And of course, that was the difference that I needed to get from one side to the other of what Robert Kiyosaki calls the cash flow quadrant, and my dad, as a factory worker, he was an employee on the employee side of the cash flow quadrant, and I was just totally flabbergasted to hear the information that Robert Kiyosaki had about people on the left side of the quadrant, where you had the employees in the small business. And I think in a previous one of my shows we drew that out on the board. how that those people over there, we were on this kind of a teeter-totter. And on the teeter-totter, you were trading time for money. And I'm sure that many of you know what I'm talking about there, where you go into your job and you work for $10 an hour or $15 an hour or $20 an hour, whatever your hourly rate is. When you're trading time for money, Robert Kiyosaki said the problem is that you never have enough of both. And boy, I certainly knew what he was talking about there, because I never seemed to have enough of both. If I wanted more time, then I had to give up money. And if I wanted more money, I had to give up time. And I just couldn't quite ever seem to find that right balance, you know. And I think that was part of the dichotomy of, you know, not being able to get away and go on vacations or do things that I wanted to do. And but Robert Kiyosaki also said that on that side of the quadrant with employee and self-employed, where people are trading time for money, that there is 95% of us out there. So 95% of our country, 95% of the people are on that side. They're either employed or self-employed. And as a result, they're trading time for money. And he said, but on that same side, in the same aspect, with 95% of those people on that side, there was only 5% of the wealth over there. And boy, I sure could relate to that, because here I was working my tail off, and it seemed like so many times that I was fighting for with 95% of the rest of the world for that little tiny sliver that I could eke out somehow and maybe make a little bit more by working a little bit harder and putting in a little bit more time, you know. And that was how I was taught. You had to get ahead. You had to, you know, go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and work real hard, and you could live the American dream, you know. And at the age of 50, I still hadn't seen that. I had done all of that and just couldn't quite seem to get there, you know. I was always just over broke at that job. And so, you know, that's kind of where I was stuck. And that's what my search kind of took me, looking for that answer. And sadly, it took me 50-some years to find that, you know. And it didn't come from a source that I really expected. I was very surprised, actually, when when I found what I did, when I found out the information that I was looking for. You know, I don't know how many of you have been in this position, but you know, you in desperation, you're working your job and you're just exhausted and you're tired of this hamster wheel and tired of your stressful existence, and you cry out to God and say, God, please send me an answer, you know. And so there I was looking for this answer, and of course when it came to me, then I looked at it and said, well, yeah, you know, anything but that. Yeah, I don't really want that answer. I'd really like, you know, a lot of money to fall out of the sky, or maybe win the lottery or whatever. But what I found, the answer that I found was life-changing information, and it truly was, and it truly did change my life. Which is exactly why I'm here, because my heart goes out to those of you who are in my position. I know what it's like. I was there, and I lived that existence, and I so want to help you and give you hope that, you know what, you don't have to live like that. You don't have to live like that anymore. You can stop that madness. I think it's, I don't know, Susie Orman or somebody that, one of those gals on TV that yells out, "Stop the madness!" And so, you know, I really want to help you stop the madness in your life. But, you know, like I said, it didn't come from a source that I really thought was what I wanted. I thought, man, I'll do anything. I just give me anything, and I'll, you know, if that'll help me get ahead, and I'll do it, you know. But then when the information came to me, I was like, oh, well, you know, don't really want to do that, you know. I think it was Henry Ford that said that success is clothed in work, or has workman's clothes, or something to that effect. And that's why so few find it, because, you know, it's kind of like hiding the welfare check underneath the work boots. You know, it's a safe spot to hide it. I don't know, maybe that wasn't a politically correct analogy, but you know, that's kind of where it was, is that I found something that really was my answer. But boy, has it been work. And you know, it was explained to me that from the neck down, we're all worth the same amount. We're all worth minimum wage. Because any old body can do manual labor. But it's what's between the neck and here that really makes a difference in people's lives. And that's what is the difference with, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and all of these men that are very successful and wealthy. It's how they think. It's what's between their ears that makes the difference. And, I just didn't have the right information, and I did the best I could with the information I had. I worked real hard. I tried to employ some people. I tried to run an honest business and provide for everybody and keep everybody in jobs. And so many times that was just more stress than I really needed. But I really needed new information. And when I found the new information, it was a relief to me. I saw hope. But that was just the beginning of the work. Because at that point, when you take the red pill, like in the Matrix, Neo had a choice. He could take the red pill or the blue pill. And, once you take the red pill, there's no going back. You already have information now that you can't unlearn. The good news is that it is truly hope. It really is a solution to our rut, our grave. And but then the work kicks in, because now it was up to me to put that information to application. And that required, as I found, for me to change. I had to change Jim. I had to change the way I think. And boy, I want to tell you, that is a difficult part right there, because I had 50-some years of, 50-some is good, close enough, of the old way, and trying to unlearn that. It'd be almost like, if you're right-handed, you've eaten your food for 20 years, 30 years with your right hand, to all of a sudden have to retrain yourself. You broke your right hand or something and you can't hold a fork anymore. Now you got to try and learn to eat with your left hand. And, it takes retraining. And retraining is hard. It's like trying to stop smoking or trying to quit drinking or so many things. It's just a very difficult thing to do for starters, and almost impossible without some kind of help. And so I started out learning this information. I was eager for it. I was hungry for it. So I started sucking it up as quick as I could. I started reading some amazing books like The Magic of Thinking Big or How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Frank Betcher's book on how I raised myself from failure to success in selling. Personalities Plus to help me learn to get along with people better. And just all of these amazing books that I started reading with just phenomenal information that truly did change my life. And but then I had to start, first of all, retraining myself to start thinking the way they did, which is what Robert Kiyosaki said, is that it's really just new information that you need to get from the working class side of the quadrant to the successful side of the quadrant. You have to, people over there think differently, and I needed to learn to think differently. And so I set about to try and do that. And that is a hard thing. It really is. But nobody said it would be easy. But what we are saying is it will be worth it. It will be worth it for you. If it changes your life, if it took you 5 years to change your thinking and to change your life around to where you no longer carried buckets, we call it, or traded time for money. You weren't on the teeter-totter anymore, but now you had both money and time. Because successful people think differently. They know that carrying buckets or trading time for money is really not the way to go. You'll never have both that way. And so they do things differently. And what they do is they invest their time in a system, and then that system helps them gain back their time and their money. They create what we call a pipeline income, and the money begins to flow even when they're not there. For example, in a McDonald's franchise, people that own a McDonald's franchise, they very seldom are there at their McDonald's store. They've got other people running it. There's high school kids and elderly folks that work there that are making it all happen, and they're off somewhere else using their time for something more important, spending time with their family or working on a cause, maybe going to some third world country and trying to help them get better at maybe having a well in their village or building a schoolhouse or something of that nature, But they they get to spend their time the way they want to, rather than you know, working on trying to just pay the bills. And it's been said that if you don't work for your own dreams, that you'll be working for someone else's. And so that's where I found myself, is on that hamster wheel, running as hard as I could to try and help someone else get their dreams, because it wasn't getting me where I wanted to go. It was paying the bills, but very little else. And so I had to retrain my thoughts. I had to think differently. I had to start thinking like a wealthy person thinks, and try and figure out a way to invest my time in a system, in something which would then give me a return on a regular basis. We like to call it a pipeline income, where you have water flowing through a pipe. You're getting paid by the gallon. You don't have to be there to make sure that water flows, because the water just flows. That's how the system works. And so I had to change my thinking and try and invest in that kind of a situation, that kind of a business. I invested time to earn money rather than to trade time for money. And of course, you know, you hear that, and that's all good, but it's changing the way you think on a daily basis. That's the tough part. And it's retraining yourself to eat with your left hand, so to speak, because if you don't do that, then it's kind of like they say, you know, I took a shower once. Well, you know, we can't just take a shower once. I took a shower once 30 years ago, but if I don't take a shower on a regular basis, I start to stink. And when we don't keep the thoughts refreshed and keep our thinking trained, then our thinking starts to stink. We have stinking thinking. I had a pastor years ago that used to say that all the time. We got to scrub out that stinking thinking and renew our minds. The Bible says that that the renewing of the mind is what we need, and I so agree with that. And so we're getting to the end of our half hour, and you know, my story isn't all told even yet, but I just want to encourage you further. You can go to our website here. You can see it listed on the screen. JB will put it on there for you. Write that down, go to our website, and you can get some of the books that we've talked about there. We make them available to people at a reasonable rate to cover our costs and expenses. But you know, you can get The Magic of Thinking Big, and you can get so many of these other good books that are there. Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant. And but there you'll also find that we have a system to help you retrain yourself and retrain your thinking. And that system basically consists of CDs and association. We meet with other people, with successfully thinking people that help us change our thinking. And then, of course, the great books that we have there too. But hopefully that'll be an encouragement to you and help you learn some new information to help get you off the hamster wheel and get you out of the rut that you're in. If we've been a blessing to you today, we encourage you to send us an email at jim.pate@gmail.com. That's jim.pate, P-A-T-E, @gmail.com, for those of you that aren't able to watch and see it on the screen. And or if you don't have email and you'd just like to drop us a call, you can reach me. My phone number is 616-799-0517. That'll reach me on the cell phone here. And if I'm not able to answer right away, please leave a message, and I'll try and return your call, and you know, we can kind of share back and forth with each other how maybe information I brought to you has been a blessing to you, or you've been a blessing to me in that way too. So, but thanks again for attending, bringing us into our home. We hope you have a blessed day.